So here's one that I see a lot of people doing, we'll say not the way I would do it. I would never say wrong. But taking your largest and softest source and making it your key light and then filling in with something smaller. In fact, the opposite is what we should be doing. The key light shapes our subject. So we want a small, punchy light. You see a beauty dish behind me. And your fill light should be something big and soft. So let me show you what I mean. Hey there, welcome to my studio in New York City. I'm Daniel Norton here for PPA. I've got Irene on set, and we're about to make some portraits. Now, oftentimes when I see people do things like clamshell lights or any other kind of light where there's kind of an active fill, if you will, they're often using a smaller source. I've even seen people use strip banks, and I kind of question why you would do that, because your key light should be shaping the face of your subject. Thus, it should be the punchiest light. The fill light really should be invisible. A great fill light to me is one you barely notice until it's not there. So I'm gonna walk through how I use a key and a fill, and let me know in the comments below what you think. So we've got a beauty dish over top of her head. There is a grid on that beauty dish. So we're gonna start there. We're gonna create kind of a tight shot, show you what it looks like, then we're gonna fill in. All right, so as I said, I've got a beauty dish right there. It does have a grid on it, so it's gonna be very, very tight. So what we want to do is bring your chin up just a smidge. Down. Right there. Okay, here we go. I'm in TTL. So we're going to get a basic shot, and we can see how punchy that is. Now, yes, it is also a little overexposed, but you see how much shadow is there. Now, you might look at that and be like, that's too much shadow. But in fact, we want shadow in order to shape the face, right? So if I get my exposure where it should be, so we're going to go there. What we get here is effectively a tight shot. Now you can overcome this a bit. So before I do this, I'm gonna switch to manual and I'm gonna dial it down a little bit. The first thing we could do is what Irene was doing to start off with, which is just raise your chin a tiny bit. And if we do that, that will help, right? If we raise the chin, we can see that the light is now effectively, encircling properly. This is why a lot of times in makeup ads, in beauty shots, you are looking up the person's nose because they're using a beauty dish, and that's the easiest way to make it work without adding a bunch of other stuff. But if we're doing kind of a standard portrait, we really don't want to be looking at the person's nose constantly. So I want them to be able to look at me, to be able to move around a little bit, and that's where the fill light comes in. So again, if we look at this with my new exposure, and she's looking right at me, chin down a little bit, right? We'll see that it's shadowy, okay? So this is actually not bad in a lot of ways. We can actually get the shadow to be a little bit less or change the angle of it by adjusting the beauty dish slightly or adjusting our subject as it would be. I see it's not centered on her, so I'm just going to move it a little bit. Yeah, that's better, right? Just going to switch a tiny bit. Perfect. All right, so we're just centering it a little better before we start. That was just a test. There we go, perfect. All right, now we're going to bring in our fill light. And again, like I mentioned at the beginning, we don't want a little tiny fill light because we don't want it to create its own shadows. We don't want it to stand out. What we want is just a kind of an overall lightening of the shadows. And the best way to do that is what we call on-axis fill. That is to say that the fill light comes from the angle of the camera. So this right here is a 4 foot by 4 foot silk from Shimira. So 4 foot by 4 foot is pretty big, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to move it in, and the person is about to comment right now about, aren't you going to throw a shadow? No, I'm not. The light will wrap around me, so it's not a problem for it to be behind me. What we're going to do is we're going to throw a frontal light over her. Now I'm going to just adjust it slightly so that we want the weight of the silk, even though it's not very heavy, to be over the leg. So I'm just adjusting this slightly. I don't know if you can see the bottom of this or not, but you want the weight over the leg. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a second Profoto light right here, just the bare head, and I'm going to place it back here. Now these have a pretty wide throw, so I don't need to go too far back to cover the whole silk. I have the model light on so you can see. That's pretty much, I don't know how obvious it is in the thing. That's pretty good. This is in my B group, the other light's in my A group. So let's do a couple of quick tests. I'm going to take my A light and I'm going to turn it off for a second. Then I'm going to take my B light, which is, again, the one behind me. I'm going to put it in TTL, and I'm going to do a shot. This is going to be flat and boring. Yep, exactly what I predicted, flat and boring. But you know, that's what we want our fill light to be. We want our fill light to fill in, right? But you can see that here we have our nice neutral of our skin tone. The only issue here is that it's too bright. We don't want our fill light to be equal exposure to our key light. We want it to be darker. So now I'm going to switch to manual. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually adjust the exposure until we get it where we want it. So I'm going to hide a little bit. So you'll have to believe me that I'm here. I haven't left the building or anything. Irene can confirm that I'm still here. Okay, so I'm going to put this on manual. And I'm going to now turn it down 2 stops. 2 stops is usually a pretty good place for shadows. So let's just take a look. And we should get, I turned it up 2 stops. I was testing you guys. We should get a darker, there we go. So that's a good baseline for our shadows, I think, right? But we won't really know until we turn our A light back on. And here's the thing. Once we add the A light, we may need to adjust our exposure even further because while the exposure was good for the A light, now we've added the B light, which is also lighting where the A light lit. So you'll see it all come together now. So here we go. We take our shot and we're going to take a peek at our exposure and see what we have going on here. Once we know everything is good, and actually it is, then now we have a light that shapes her face beautifully, that has some shadow. We can see, and again, shadow is important because look at how it shapes the lips, look at how it shapes the cheekbones. We want shadow. We just don't want it to be dark and muddy. So here we have actually what I think is a pretty good exposure with 2 stops under. But just to give you some variation, I'm going to raise the power of the fill light 1 stop, and then I'll lower it 1 stop. So we can have a variation of 1 stop under, 2 stops under, and 3 stops under. So let me shoot those and we'll see. So if I lower the power of the fill light 1 more stop, we're 3 stops under. That's going to make our shadows a bit denser, right? Right? And then if we go back up instead, so we're 1 stop under exposure, we have more filled in shadows. So let's take a peek and see what we like best, and then we'll shoot some. So this is pretty good, actually. This is pretty nice. It's light, even with her chin down. We have nice fill in. It's kind of flat, but it's nice. This one's too dark, right? 3 stops under to me is just too dark. It fills in a little bit, so it's not terrible, but it's really not where we want to be. 2 stops under, I think, is probably where we want to be. It gives us the best combination of the filled in shadows and the proper exposure. So with this in mind, we're going to go back to where we were. So again, we're here. So I'm going to go darker 1 stop. Turn it down 1 stop. And we're going to take a shot. There we go. Once we know we're there, boom, now we can work it a little bit. Push your shoulders forward like this. Like really, like, there we go. Bring your chin more to the center there. Powerful. Good. Good. Breathe. Good. Intense. Nice. Oops. Good. Where's my camera off? There we go. Sorry. The camera paused for a second. Nice. Beautiful. Good. Good. Come up a little bit with the camera. Good. Beautiful. That's it. That's it. Good. 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 That's it right there. And you see with the variation, because we're filling in, whether her chin goes up or down, we always have enough light on the face to cover anything we want, right? We got the classic beauty with the chin up in the air, but we can also get away with this kind of like sweetie, kind of cute look. There's enough light in her eyes there to fill that in. In fact, we can always do something which you might think is unusual. You could take this shot, we have our fill, we can also add a passive fill. We could add a reflector if we want just a little bit more flavor. Now, with a gridded beauty dish, it's kind of tough to get any reflection, but sometimes I like to add a little silver reflector in there just to give a kick to the eyes. Let me show you what that looks like. So we can see here that, again, it's basically the same, but you see how we get a little bit more brightness in the eyes, which is especially useful when she looks down. Give me that one where you're kind of like looking down like this. Yeah, this way a little bit more centered. There we go. Center your chin on me a little bit more. There we go. That's it. And we can see that with the chin down, we still get that little tiny sparkle in the eyes just from the silver reflector, which is nice, right? Kind of gives us that little bit if you like that. So we could do it either way. Let's try a couple with this. Gonna have you looking just right at me. We'll try some variations. Good, that's it, I like that. Good. Right, good, good, good. And again, this is all just variation. The important part here, though, is that we're bringing in a large fill light and a small key light, shaping the face, filling in the shadows. And again, it works even when the chin's up in the air in a classic beauty. Let's end that way for one final shot. So I'm going to have you just kind of straight on. Yeah, that's just like that, exactly, right there. And this is no reflector, just nice and clean. And we have exactly a well-measured beauty shot, right? The way that I normally would do it. Small key light shaping the face, large fill light you barely notice. Let me know how you use fill lights. Do you use a small fill light? And if so, why? Let me know why you think that's a better way to go, or maybe you just have always done it that way. I'm Daniel Norton here for PPA. This is Irene. We'll talk to you soon.